what exactly is hypnotherapy? And it's to define that, we kind of have to talk about what hypnosis even is first. And the thing that I like to say right away is this is not metaphysical. This is not theoretical. When we talk about trance and hypnosis and things like that, we are talking about a scientifically validated natural process, a function of the mind.
Welcome to another edition of the podcast known as Blending the Family. I am your host, Tommy Maloney. Thanks for coming by. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. Maybe you're driving cross country and you're listening to podcasts. Maybe you're washing your pet gorilla. I don't recommend it today. Very, very cold here in Colorado. Or just maybe, you don't care and you're walking your dog. Well, again, don't recommend it. Don't recommend it. Didn't even take Otis to the dog park today, but we will talk about it momentarily. On this episode of the podcast, again, Blending Family, I am your host, Tommy Maloney. We have J. Robert Parker. Who is J. Robert Parker? Well, he's the founder of Twin Ravens Hypnotherapy and Research, LLC. Yes, we have a hypnotherapist, and I'm so excited to share this episode with you. Didn't ever expect to say those words, or did you ever expect for me to say those words? I have no idea what that means, but anyway, yes, J. Robert Parker is our guest, Twin Ravens Hypnotherapy and Research LLC, and we're going to talk about parenting stuff, we're going to talk about affirmations, we're going to talk about why the secret is not a secret. I know it's not a secret, I get it. But I still enjoy watching it and talking about visualization, all that good stuff. So anyway, how are you doing? You having a good day so far? I hope so. Anyway, it is cold here. Let me just grab my phone real quick. Shoot, I need that. But I'll come back to that later. Current weather, high of 9. It's a high of 9 right now here in northern Colorado. And I also want to say I'm enjoying some new tea. My wife and I took a little day trip up to Estes Park, Colorado. If you've never been there, highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. And last time my wife was up there with the bonus daughters, they brought some tea back. And I am sampling. This is organic turmeric chai. It has black tea, cinnamon, turmeric, fennel, ginger, anise, anise, I don't know what that is. Cloves, black pepper, but it's a small business up in Estes Park called. I'm gonna have to spell a lot of this out because I can't pronounce a lot of this stuff out. But anyway, their website is. There goes my phone. Rocky Mountain. So you spell rock or www.rockymountain. SERENITEA.com. Rocky Mountain, SERENITEA.com. Really good stuff. I had a peppermint digestive one the other day, and now this one, the organic turmeric chai, really good. Oh, I love tea. Yes, I start my day off with coffee, but throughout the day, I drink tea. Yes. Anyway, didn't take Otis to a dog park. As I mentioned, it is really, really cold here. However, super excited about tonight. I get to root my wife and her team on at her axe throwing team. I have a story for you, so gather around, kids. Uncle Tommy's going to tell you a quick story. So the previous week, I went to go support the team, and I turned up, I don't know what that means, but I ended up playing, not for my wife's team, but for another team against the team. And because of me, I want to say my wife's team won because of me, because that was the first time I've ever done axe throwing. First time. And I'll admit it, I suck. And my wife says, hey, you going to try it again? I said, no, I'm retired. I am totally retired. I don't think I'll even. I don't know. No interest. I'll stick with. I don't play any more sports because of. Well, I just don't. What else is going on? Not a whole heck of a lot. Super excited about this episode as always. And matter of fact, coming up. Oh, I should mention this. Coming up, I will be a guest on a podcast, and we will replay that for our purpose. And yeah, I'm gonna have some more tea. I put a little honey in it. I love honey. Honey is so good. Anyway, um, yeah, I have a few other things to say. Oh, so like I said, J. Robert Parker's on this episode, and I was introduced to him through somebody I met through a podcast group on Twitter, Djscoob. Check out Djscoob and his podcast. It's all about brand new businesses that are just launching and they're in the early phases. So Google Djscoob or find him on Twitter. I'm sure he's on Facebook. I don't know. I'm not on Facebook or Instagram. My wife's entering a contest right now over at one of our favorite distilleries. I'll give a plug to 477 Distillery. And they're having this contest. And she created this drink. And hopefully her entry will get her into the top 5. And if you win, you get free drinks for, I think, a year, something like that. So anyway, so excited for my wife, and hopefully I didn't get to taste it because it does have some cayenne pepper in it, and well, not me, but my tummy doesn't like spicy stuff. So that's it. We talk tea, we talk axe throwing, and coming up, we're going to talk about hypnotherapy, or as I kept trying to pronounce it, hypnotherapy, or I pronounced it wrong the whole time, but I'm so excited because, like I said, so Robert Parker is a hypnotherapist, and let me just quickly pull up his website, because some of the things that he does, let's go to the homepage. As I was listening to his conversation with Djscoob, I'm going, gotta get him on here, because some of the things he talked about, or his business talks about motivation, relationships, trauma, stress, grief, loss, and I told Robert that's the world of divorce. That could also be part of blended families, and dealing with teenagers and you're not my dad, things like that. And so I hope you really get a lot out of this conversation, and check out his website at twinravens.org, twinravens.org. So there you go. I'm so happy that this episode came out. So, all right, that's it. I think I've said way too much. So let me go back to my GarageBand and make sure I hit the stop button eventually. As Terry Crews would say it with me, say it with me. Your success is my success. Okay, so now I've hit record, Robert. So as we were just mentioning, yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed your conversation with Djscoob, because not only it was an eye opener for me about your business, Robert, of hypnotherapy,
Mhm.
but as I listened to the two of you talk and have a wonderful conversation. And I know you guys were more on the topic of, your business and building a business and
Mhm.
growing a business. But as I was listening, I was like, for me, coming from, the parenting point of view, the parenting space, I'm like, I think Robert would be a wonderful conversationalist to have on this podcast, because I feel that some of the things that the two of you talked about can really relate to parenting and divorce, and a lot of the things that you do for your business, your hypno. Wow, I haven't had enough coffee yet. I apologize,
That's
but
fine.
your hypnotherapy is a lot of, you do deal with, fears and
Mhm.
anxieties and trauma, and I'm going, that's the world divorce. That's the world of,
Well,
my little space. But
that's
what
the
is
world.
hypnotherapy? Pardon?
Well, first of all, that's the world, and
Yeah.
like I often, because I teach classes on to various groups, like court reporting students, sales teams, things like that, random. And one of the questions they asked me recently was these things that we're learning in class. Is this just specific to stenography or sales or whatever have you? Or is this things that we could use everywhere? And the answer to that is everywhere, because just in the same way you saw the things that just talking about business that would resonate with your own audience, this is, it's not, while I can deliver it specialized, this is not a specialized thing. And you asked, what exactly is hypnotherapy? And it's to define that, we kind of have to talk about what hypnosis even is first. And the thing that I like to say right away is this is not metaphysical. This is not theoretical. When we talk about trance and hypnosis and things like that, we are talking about a scientifically validated natural process, a function of the mind. And this is reinforced by countless studies. My business name is Twin Ravens Hypnotherapy and Research. I have recently gotten all of the prerequisites to begin um, posting and accepting government grants to do research on the subject. But anyway, so hypnosis, if you wanted to give the blandest, most unexplanatory, ex, most difficult to define terms possible, it's the theta brainwave state. Um, I haven't had my tea, so we're all going to kind of struggle with our words here.
It's all good.
Um, so your brain has different wave patterns, different frequencies of function. For example, there's alpha. Alpha is relaxation, calm. You have beta, which is attentiveness, delta, which is sleep. And there's also this strange one called theta. And it's encountered in some interesting places. It's encountered in deep meditation, in hypnosis, and deep prayer. While we are watching a movie, we are particularly engrossed in. Um, and it is our brain's receptive state. It could be called a learning state in its deeper forms. So you have this thing in your mind which allows you to speak directly to your subconscious. Under normal uh, conditions, your conscious mind and subconscious mind can't really communicate. Um, a good way to illustrate this is, what's a food that you just got bad association with, that you just haven't liked since childhood?
Brussels sprouts.
Brussels sprouts. Make yourself like Brussels sprouts right now. Make that decision. Do you like them yet?
No.
Okay. Well, why couldn't you do that? It's the same reason that you have an emotional reaction whenever you watch a movie, because you consciously, logically, which when we talk about the conscious mind, it's just logic, willpower, decision making, things like that. You consciously know it's fake. You're watching a lie, yet you still feel sadness, anger, happiness, all of these things. Why? And it's because your subconscious cannot differentiate between fact and fiction, and your conscious mind is unable to directly communicate with it. Now, you're in hypnosis twice a day. 30 minutes before you go to sleep, 30 minutes after you wake up, you are in your critical filter is down. You are able to speak directly to your subconscious. You are in the trance state. Hypnosis is not sleep, but you could consider it like the doorway. You have to go through trance to go to sleep, and you have to go through trance to wake up. So it's the reason behind morning and nightly affirmations. And so what hypnotherapy is taking this tool, this natural process and function, and it is utilizing it to be able to bring about positive change in thoughts and behaviors, to break habits, to form new habits, to overcome parts of your past, or to create a greater future. Because everything is association. Everything is association, homeostasis, which is basically could be defined as your brain's normal. This exists as a script in our subconscious as to what makes up our world. And you can also encounter homeostasis in environments like families and things like that. Um, it's the reason why whenever um, parents are starting to make the turn towards divorce, that one of the children will act out, because that is a subconscious attempt to maintain the homeostasis of the family. Anyway, so it is hypnotherapy is a very broad term. I work with a lot of issues. As you said, you first heard my interview with Scoob talking about business. I work with some business professionals. I work with people overcoming trauma and fear, people wanting to lose weight or stop smoking. Uh, I'm working with somebody next week to try to help them find something they lost. It's it's a very unusual um, set of things that I work with, but it's all through the lens of this tool.
Um, so when I think of hypnotherapy, I personally
Mhm.
think about like those really bad sci-fi movies,
Yep.
or even I think even in the James Bond world where they would either have like a pocket watch and you'd
Mhm.
stare at the pocket watch, or they'd have like a spinning wheel to. Is that all mumbo jumbo, or is that
Well, like the
real?
spinning wheel, does that work?
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I love that. Like that's one of my favorite ways to self hypnotize. I think it's fun. Um, and what you're doing, it's not the wheel or the pocket watch itself that brings about hypnosis. I could hypnotize you with a hot dog. It's the eye fixation. Um, because one of the things you'll notice anytime you watch someone use an object to hypnotize, where are they holding it? Are they holding it straight in front of them, or are they holding it up, just so they're having to look up through their eyebrows to see it? And what happens when you look up through your eyebrows at something and attempt to focus? Your eyes begin to become fatigued. They begin to feel heavy. And what's the next thing that's going to come out of that hypnotist's mouth? Your eyes may begin to feel heavy, which you've just received validation for the thing that you feel. So while all those things in movies are generally BS, uh, that the eye fixation thing is real. I've only ever encountered one movie that accurately displays hypnosis. And it's an old, I believe, I can't remember if it's Marlon Brando or Orson Welles. I think it's Orson Welles. It was from 1949, old movie called Black Magic. And it pretty accurately shows what hypnosis is, to the point that the school I attended, I graduated with honors from HMI College of Hypnotherapy. It's accredited by the Department of Education. They give postgraduate degrees in clinical hypnotherapy. And in my hypnotic modalities class, they showed this movie, and they would occasionally pause it and talk about how what he just did, while dramatized, accurately demonstrates the conditions to bring about hypnosis. But if we're talking about like Get Out and things like that, like that's just hypnosis is so easily dramatized. Uh, and it really, before we started recording, I talked about how one of the things that I realized very quickly, and like the whole reason that I do these interviews for the most part, is I noticed there's just wild misconceptions as to what hypnosis is, what it's capable of, what it even looks like. And speaking for myself, I didn't know, because whenever I signed up for the school, I had no idea if hypnosis was real or fake. I'd never seen it for real. I'd never experienced it. All I knew was like the half-assed things I saw on the screen, and I knew those were fake. So I came to it with a very open mind, and I also came to it with a very skeptical mind at the same time. And it was a couple of weeks before my mind was absolutely blown, and I learned about the science of it. That this is a state that I could hook you up to various biofeedback devices, ECGs, galvanic skin response meters, and show you what hypnosis looks like. Show you when someone goes into trance, when their trance deepens, when they accept a suggestion, when they reject a suggestion, and it's it's fascinating. It truly is. This is I talk so constantly about this because this is something I found that I was just I I without any irony say that this is my calling, that this thing I've discovered, that the skill I was taught, that I feel as though I have a true talent for it, and I've already done incredible things with this. And there's even more incredible things to be done. Some of the research that I can show is stunning and unbelievable even to me, if not for where it came from. Uh, an example of this that I often cite is there is a study from, I believe it's UC Berkeley Medical Center, about how hypnosis can be used to control localized blood loss in surgery. What? Like, and this isn't some fly by night organization making these claims. This isn't even a hypnotist making these claims. This is a medical research facility finding actual results and merit in this. And that to me is absolutely stunning.
Well, I want to just take a couple steps back because you were talking about before you uh, started your coursework and how skeptic you were.
Hmm.
For me, I look at the world of hypnotherapy as you're going to the carnival and it's a sideshow thing, or you go to I remember being at an event many years ago, a holiday party,
Hmm.
and they
A
brought in a
stage hypnotist.
hypnotist.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And luckily there was the booze was flowing because we're all just like, yeah, yeah. But as you start talking earlier about, you know, the way I correlate is to like transcendental meditation,
Hmm.
TMI,
Hmm.
or TM, sorry, and having affirmations. Something in I don't know where I picked it up, but for me, when I first started coaching my son in hockey, um, he's a goalie. And one of the things we talked a lot about, even at a very young age for him, was visualization.
Hmm.
And for me, it was maybe it's along the same lines, but putting yourself in a state as I always, whenever I hear that phrase, I always think of Tony Robbins because Tony Robbins always uses that.
So
Got to be in a state,
I'm going to tell you a
and
secret. Tony
hmm,
Robbins, all of these things, NLP, imagery, visualization, TM,
hmm,
all of these things, we're talking about the same thing. NLP is simply just, uh, I call it bootstrap hypnosis. And if you
hmm,
look into it, Bandler and Grinder, the people that created neurolinguistic programming, studied Dr. Milton Erickson, the preeminent hypnotherapist of his day. So, and as I said, one of the places that the theta state is also encountered is deep meditation. all of these things, all of them, when we're talking about visualization, when we're talking about being in the groove, all of these things are trance, all of them. And what I tell my clients and the people that I work with or the people I talk to, hypnosis and trance and all of these, this isn't a switch. This isn't an on off thing. This is something that you go through various depths of all throughout your day. That after my experiences, I even somehow kind of think that even consciousness is only an upper level of trance. That this is just something. This is a perception of consciousness that we are able to switch in between. And when you talk about visualization with hockey, I work with athletes, and that's what I'm doing with them. Talking about imagery and visualization, giving post
Mhm.
hypnotic suggestions to performance, things like that. This is all just trance.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't know where I picked it up. It could have been one of the things. For me, I love watching the. I don't even know what to call it. Was it a documentary? But The Secret. But they had
I'm about to
Dr.
blow your mind, by the
Whately.
way.
Oh, uh-oh. But hold that thought. But Dr. Whately, because he was part of the United States Olympic team, talking about visualization and how they would have athletes run their event mentally.
Mhm.
And with my son, what I would do is before he would go skate to the net, I'd have him come over to the bench, and I just started off with just take 3 deep breaths to just kind of get him calm, and then his eyes would be closed this whole time, and I would say to him, "Where are you at?" And for he and I, that way to get him into not I guess his happy place was he and I would play a lot of street hockey at the townhome I had, and that's where he would be mentally. He'd be at the townhome having fun, and
You know, you're
I'd say to
describing a
him,
hypnosis session, right?
"Am I? Am
Yes.
I hired? Can I start my own business?"
I mean, uh, kind of. It's this. You're literally describing a hypnotic induction in a therapeutic imagery session.
All right, so let's take it. So what's the difference between um, saying to somebody, or let me ask you this: do you always have to have um, you don't always have to have something for a person to stare at. They
No,
can essentially just
I don't tend to use. We call them eye fixation
okay.
inductions. I don't really go for those too much. Most of my inductions, I don't need to be physically there because I work fully remote. So I,
Hold on. So that was one of my questions is so you and I could do this
oh yeah,
right now
I could
in
trance you right
theory.
now.
Okay. So
Like
you
it's
all right. Well, because I was thinking, oh, you have to be there. You have to
no,
be
my
in
practice is
physical.
100% remote. Yeah, it's the proximity makes no difference at all. There is nothing that requires me to physically be there. I prefer video because I prefer to be able to see someone's reactions, but that's not needed. I've done very effective work just with audio, just like we are right now. So, I wanted to touch on something that you said because you mentioned the secret.
Oh yeah.
The law of attraction is an attempt to mystify neurology. There is something in your brain called the reticular activating system. It is a part of your hippocampus. And this is your mind's goal setting device. It is what filters people, places, things, information related to your goals to the point that it looks like magic, that it looks like you're manifesting something to the point. But it's fact of the matter is, it's always been there. Your brain just focuses it out. Think about how much input is coming in around you visually, audio, all of these things, and how much your brain filters it out. What is determining what it filters out and what it filters in? The reticular activating system. So,
Mm-hmm.
whenever you create a goal, whenever you create, let's say, an intent, you are reprogramming your reticular activating system to align your reality, your what you are now choosing to perceive in lines with that goal. So the secret's always been one of those frustrating things to me, the whole law of attraction thing, because it's an attempt to mystify, to attribute magical thinking to neurology, and it is reductive of the absolute incredible things that your mind itself is capable of. It's not the law of attraction, it's the reticular activating system. It is something that, were we on video now, I could call up a diagram to show you what this system looks like, where it's located. So that's one of the things that I work with a lot, because one of the other things this reticular system is in charge of is the transition to sleep. And what did I say about trance? It's the doorway. So, if the system is in charge of the transition to sleep, it is by default in charge of the transition to trance. So, the exact same system in your mind that determines what you see, literally, what you see, hear, perceive, is the system that calls you into trance. And a good way I can demonstrate this reticular system is, unfortunately, with a negative example. It's depression. When you're depressed, it doesn't matter what good and abundant things are in your life. What do you see? Only the bad. It doesn't matter how in your face this good is. You are only capable in those moments of seeing the bad. And it's the same thing with everything. So, anyone that's into the law of attraction, anyone that's in the secret, we need to have a long talk, because this isn't this isn't magic. This isn't manifestation. This is this is something incredible within the human mind that, yes, to people that don't understand it, this must look like magic because it does work. Um, I can very much attest to that, but it's not magic. It's just neurology. It's just it's this the incredible machine that is the human brain. And that's what we're talking about with all of this. It's the functions of this incredibly complex, wonderful machine that is the human mind, that is all of the things that relate to that. And there's a lot of attempts to make that appear magical, because it appears magical, the things that we're capable of doing. Just not. That's all. I just have, anytime I hear the secret of the law of attraction, I have like almost like a prepared speech against it.
I love it, Robert. I love it. I'm on board with the secret. Just, I mean, but I understand. And
Ultimately,
here's
whatever you need to do, whatever lens you need to view things through to be able to achieve it, because you will see results. Absolutely, because of this natural system. So if people want to think about it that way, awesome. Because I'm the first one to tell you, reality doesn't mean a thing. As to what reality is simply a matter of perception. It's in like, if you ask 10 different people to watch a single thing, how many versions of that thing do you think you're going to get upon recollection?
10.
About 10. It's the reason that witness testimony is such a garbage form of evidence legally, because you can't trust what comes out of someone's mouth. Everything is our lens of perception. And that lens of perception can be focused, unfocused, and changed to whatever it is that you are choosing to do. And like you were saying, with the visualizations of street hockey, man, that's the exact same thing I do to a professional hockey player. Like, the adductions are a little more complex and achieve a little more hypnotic depth. Um, but it's the same basic thing. I would have him go through a visualization of him scoring the perfect goal, of him skating flawlessly, of feeling balanced and in control, just in the same way that it doesn't pick your issue, pick your patient, pick your client, whatever it is. Visualization imagery, we call it guided imagery, is the official name of it. That is uh, real big parts of many hypnotherapists' practice. And the reason for this is, again, neurology. We have something in our minds called mirror neurons. They are existent in many of the higher primates, and it is a thing in our brain that allows us to basically learn by watching. That, and to a degree, whenever, say, we see someone swing a golf club, by observing that, we now have some idea of how to swing a golf club because we have, in a way, experienced it. We saw them do it, we visualized ourselves doing it, and while not as good as actual action and performance, it does set in the skill. So, yeah, again, neurology, mirror neurons. It's this is all science.
So one thing I really found interesting when we talk about your business, Twin Ravens hypnotherapy. Gosh, what is my issue?
It
Um,
happens.
so a lot of like the self improvement areas,
Mhm.
motivation, study and work, relationships, confidence. I
Yeah.
mean, it goes back to like I was, we were talking about, parenting, divorce, and
Hmm.
you touched on depression,
Hmm.
and you know these are all things that, again, in my world with blended families, I mean, there's stress with relationships because not only are you dealing with your significant other, but when in the world of divorce, we're dealing with our former significant other, and
Hmm.
our current significant other is dealing with their significant. I mean, it relationship wise, it gets very stressful, and especially if you have kids and you're trying to, blend a family and all that stuff. So this is again where I really wanted to, bring you onto this podcast,
Hmm.
is to talk about how can your business help in the world of parenting and relationships.
Oh man, this is
Where do we start?
this is the rabbit hole. Of all the other things that I've talked about, this is actually the rabbit hole because the school I went to has a how to call it, a system that we were taught, and this system is called the ENP system of suggestibility and behavior,
One more
and
time.
the ENP system of suggestibility and behavior. ENP stands for emotional and physical. And
Oh, okay.
on its barest surface, what this is for is determining hypnotic suggestibility. And what that means is how you go into hypnosis. It tells me basically the language that I need to use to be able to achieve the desired results. Uh, and that doesn't mean like, do I speak English or do I speak Russian? That means that, like, do I speak literally? Do I speak directly? Or do I speak inferentially and metaphorically? And such and such. And beyond this, what this speaks on is many things about our personality. For example, a physical is going to be somebody that is, they tend to be very outgoing. They will recharge their battery, so to speak, with socialization by being around people. They're people that you must speak to very directly and literally, but they will speak inferentially. Into this person, their primary driver in their world is the relationship and the physical affection behind that relationship. So, on the other end of that, you have the emotionals, which is what I am. These people uh, are the loners, so to speak. We recharge our battery by being solitary, staying home, reading a book. We are people that you must speak to inferentially, but will speak very directly. Um, an emotional will view their career paramount above all, and does not really uh, the physical affection is not that important, but the relationship itself is, the security of it. And you have these two different sides, and it's not black and white. It's a percentage that you land on. Like, for example, I'm 82 emotional and the rest is physical. And we will always, ideally, unless it's a real interesting thing or we're rebounding, end up with the opposite, because opposites attract. So ideally, a high emo ends up with a high physical. And I I never thought I'd end up playing the role of relationship counselor, becoming a hypnotherapist, but I do, because I'll propose a scenario to you. What happens if you have a physical partner who is very into the validation of the relationship, which they hold more important than anything to them? Physical affection is a validation of that. And you have this emotional partner who doesn't really like too much physical affection and is very focused on their job. What happens? You have the
Oh, you're going to have
breakdown.
conflict.
You have the traditional conflict that's encountered in every relationship. This person's not physically interested in me. This person's too clingy. This person's too all about their work. The same thing we hear one side or another. When, if we simply sit down and realize this person isn't rejecting you by not being interested in like physical contact, they're just, that's not what validates the relationship to them. Whereas to a physical, them physically rejecting somebody means rejection, but that's not what that means. So you bring both these parties together and you explain this to them. You explain where their needs lie and their priorities lie, because we don't have a manual for these things. We are, the only safe assumption we can make is everyone thinks like we do, because that's the only data we have to work with. But to actually learn this, you, let's say if you're 65 physical, that's what this means. It means you are going to be somebody that will need to be around people, that needs to be physically validated by their partner, and you're not really going to view your job as that paramount. If you've ever heard of somebody that didn't do anything until they got married and now all of a sudden they're wildly successful, that was a high fizz, because until they had the guaranteed security of a relationship, they they weren't interested. It was, the career was a very secondary thing to them. Even if they were successful, they were focused on the relationship. And where this comes in with marriage and divorce and everything is, it's everything. The first step in this ENP system, which is something that I work with a lot with my individual clients, with my groups, with my classes. This is a whole can of worms. I'm being very reductive about everything that I'm saying for the sake of brevity, because this is a deep, deep, deep rabbit hole. And this education on the topic that I bring, it's by knowing your own needs first. That changes the lens which you are given to perceive the world. Um, for an example, this learning about this system changed my life completely, because
Also,
I I spent most of my life, or all of my life really, I'm the guy that if you take him to a party, I stick to the wall. I'm not particularly interested in being there. I'm not going to talk to strangers, and moreover, I think the people talking to strangers are weird. And and for my entire life, I've been like this, and I thought there was something wrong with me. I just preferred to be alone. I wasn't happy unless I had some identity professionally that I could get behind. And I just thought there was something strange about me. And I remember in class when they just start describing uh, the a high emotional. If you're high enough, you're something called an intellectual suggestible. You're a whole different suggestibility type, and they start describing the aspects of an intellectual suggestible, and they start basically talking about all of these different aspects of my personality, which I've never been comfortable with, that I thought made me strange. And by having this affirmation of, man, you're not strange, you're a high emo. This is what you need. This is what how you need to view the world and what you need to be happy. And by learning these things and accepting these things for the first time, I and I'm 39 now, but I didn't just figure this out. But the first time in almost 4 decades, I'm happy. I'm content with who I am. And more than that, I understand everyone else. These physicals that need to talk to people, that can talk to strangers. I understand them. They're not weird to me anymore. I get their needs. I get what makes them different and special. And it's made the way that I view the entire world around me different because of this understanding that I now have. So basically, that's it.
So, yeah, so to me, a lot of things that you're talking about, Robert, was, like the books of the different love languages. So you
Uh huh.
just need to know not only, yourself, your love language, are you more, physical or are you more emotional, but
Hmm.
also your partners, but also your kids.
Yep. Yep.
True?
Yep. Absolutely. Um, and this this EMP system is just it's like the Myers Briggs or the Enneagram or all of these ways to measure personality. It is simply just a very simplified version of it that allows a base level of understanding, which is all you need to work with to start. You need to know the basics of somebody. And in terms of the family dynamic, absolutely. Absolutely, it makes a huge difference. Because if you have an emo kid, he's not going to want to go out and play. He's going to want to read books and draw and like pursue cerebral things. He's not going to be interested in sports. And if you put that child in a situation that you are pushing them to be social, you are pushing them to be a physical, you'll make them that, and you'll create an incongruency. You will we call it an emo with a fizz defense, which means they've learned that to get what they want or to smooth things over in life, they have to act like a fizz. I did it for many years, and it leads to problems because you're never comfortable. It would be like if you had somebody that needed to physically interact with somebody and you locked them in a room all day. It's just they're eventually going to learn to deal with it, to cope, to maintain mental health, but it's going to create some incongruencies in behavior and mentally.
Well, my biggest lesson I learned when I married my wife and with my two bonus daughters was, how different they were.
Hmm.
And I was so used to, my son. And then when we became a blended family, so my oldest bonus daughter, Betsy, is very A personality. And then her
Hmm.
sister, Becca, is I hate to say this, but not. But for
That's just
me,
that's just Nemo. That's all that is.
yeah, she is, and it was funny because it took me a while to finally figure out. Okay, so when Betsy came home from school, she got right to the homework, had to get it done, this, and this, and then Becca, the opposite. She came home, she had to decompress.
Uh-huh.
Matter of fact, there were times where I'd pick her up from school and she'd go, "Hey, can we go get an ice cream cone?" Yeah, that's her way of decompressing, and
Yep.
it was a learning opportunity for me. So what kind of other steps can you bring into to help us, besides the ENP, which is brilliant, but what other things for parents to help their kids, you know, f- kind of figure them out, if that's making sense?
Well, the the easiest way to determine like what what a person's needs are kind of going to be is, would you rather read a book or would you rather go out and be in public? Would you rather get right to work or would you rather go get ice cream? It's the difference between that E and that P and the understanding that comes with them, because this is about communication. Hypnosis can really just be called advanced communication. That when you know how to communicate with somebody, the words that you must use, that makes all the difference in how you can communicate with them. For example, if your kid's an emo, you can't tell them to do anything. You cannot, because an emotional will have control issues. That if you tell them you are going to do this, go do this, they're going to rebel because of that suggestibility. Whereas a fizz, you can tell them directly, go do this thing, and they will. They prefer the direction. Well, if you don't know how, if your kid's always bucking against you, they're an emo, you just never knew this. Well, at that point, give them a choice, give them options, make it their decision. Uh, Frame it with, say you want them to clean their room. Hey, do you want to clean your room before we go get food or after? And either way, what happens? They clean the room, but you gave them the choice. You made it their decision. You offered them that control, which allowed you to made the suggestion. That's all. As you got the suggestion to be accepted, and you got what you wanted. And all it had to change, was how you communicated, and that's it. That's why this system is so huge, because when we're talking about what I do for work, this system is its backbone. It is the foundation for all the work that I do. And that communication, that knowing how to communicate, completely changes the dynamic wherever it is presented.
So
Because
one
go ahead,
thing
go ahead.
I'm hearing you say, Robert, is so for example, a lot of the things like procrastination, I
Hmm.
mean that's a in layman's terms, that's a human thing. And
Yeah.
so the, once you figure out if somebody's emotional or physical, that's how you would phrase like you just did with that example, because that's a
Hmm.
perfect example for kids. Do you want to clean your room now or do you want to clean your room, X?
Hmm.
Is that along the lines of other as you have on your website, habit control, so weight loss,
Hmm.
smoking,
Oh yeah.
procrastination? So is ENP essentially part of your system, part of the foundation to help people break through?
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Because I have to, before I can, because again, as I said, hypnosis is advanced communication. And before I can give you a suggestion, before I can even educate you on your mind, I have to know how you learn, which is what your suggestibility is most. It's suggestibility and learning are synonyms. It's the same thing. The way you accept hypnotic suggestion is the same way that you process information. So I have to know before I can help you quit smoking, before I can help you lose weight, where you land on this scale, because I need to know how to word things, how to even get you into hypnosis. It's the difference between your eyes are feeling heavy, you're beginning to feel drowsy, and you may begin to feel your eyes getting heavy as if there's weights attached to your eyelids. And if you begin to feel this, you can allow them to close. It's permissive language versus direction. And in the same way that I said that, if your kid's an emo and you give them the choice, do you want to clean your room before or after? If your child was a fizz and you gave them that same choice, you're just going to lock them up. They don't want the choice. They need the direction. They need that
Okay.
structure.
Okay.
So yeah, it's everything. It's a whole lens that you view the world through. And my sales classes that I teach, this is a very big thing that I teach with them, because again, this is communication. Any Any interaction, job, or position that you need to communicate, this will affect. And how often do you have to communicate in life?
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it changes the way that you can communicate, and it allows your communication to be better heard.
So let me ask you this, Robert. So what steps going forward can you recommend for better communication with as a parent to our kids, and even vice versa from the kids' point of view, and let's say teenagers. So from a teenager point of view
Oh,
to their
teenager's just going to be a
parent.
wild card.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, honestly, like a teenager's going to be a wild card, and you still need to know where they land on this system. You're just going to see a hyper exaggerated version of it, and it's all teenagers are. I mean, we've all been teenagers. We know that havoc. That's that's just a rodeo, but um it's, in a way, it's even more important, because what happens if you say something wrong, if you phrase something wrong to a teenager? They let you know, and they let
Oh
you
gosh,
know
yes.
in some very explosive terms. And in fact, that is really, if you had to boil down the issues of a teenager, how you speak to them is a big one. And maybe it's a matter of learning how to speak to them, and this system helping you figure that out. And so, like, the first thing any parent needs to do with this, because there is a suggestibility test that you can take. But like I said, it's, your kid. Does your kid want to hang out with friends? Does your kid want to sit at home and like read a book and do work and stuff? Because then if your kid wants to always hang out with friends, you have a fizz. You need to be very direct with them. If you have a kid that hangs out by themselves, probably have an emo. Give them choices. Be indirect, and that's really the first step. And like I said, being very reductionist, but this is that first step, and changing that communication and making that communication more healthy. And part of that communication is conversation, of teaching them about this system in the same way. Most of what I do, like, so if somebody has me as their hypnotherapist, about 75% of the work we do is education. It's teaching you about this system and the way that your mind works and accepts information and processes information, and in teaching, now that you have this lens, looking back at, um, let's say it's weight loss, looking back at where this started through the lens of their suggestibility, and why they have this habit to begin with. um for example, let's say a physical person has a problem with weight. Well, you might learn that that's how that's what brought them together with their mother, is that connection was food. And because to a physical, the relationship that they have with somebody is paramount, there remains that connection of food with the comfort that you got with that connection from your mother, which is why now that anytime you get stressed or worried, you eat whatever she fed you before, whatever you learned to prefer as a child. And all that is association. Everything in life, everything is association or learned behavior, which is just association through physically doing. And it's, once you know the roots of these associations, that's when you can start to change them. That's when you can, with hypnosis, begin to redirect a more positive association. um, the same, for example, with weight loss again, create a positive association behind healthy foods. And I'm when it terms comes to habit control, I never take anything away. I don't ask you to stop smoking. I don't tell you to stop eating something. I introduce positive behaviors and habits and let those simply overwhelm the negative habits. And it always works. So that's it.
Well, with smoking, I always heard. I think it was Zig Ziglar talked about. Well, just change the habit from smoking to chewing gum.
Well, until you would address the reason that behavior exists, you will never fix it. Simply
Right.
redirecting to another behavior, to another habit, never changes the core reason why it started. And until you address that core reason, it will never change. Here's a fascinating example that I have for that with smoking. And this is a client which I've gotten permission to share this with. But I had a client, uh, a woman who came to me to stop smoking. And as I often hear, I was her last resort, that she had tried everything else and nothing seemed to work. She could quit for a week or two, but she always went back. And so I took her on as a client and we had a couple of sessions, and I come to learn that this woman was very, very close to her grandfather, loved the man very deeply, and he died at a very young age. Um, can you guess what grandfather did? Grandfather smoked,
Smoked.
specifically
Yeah.
Marlboro Reds. Could you guess what her preferred brand of cigarette was?
Marlboro Reds.
Marlboro Reds. Because whenever she felt discomfort, anxiety, whatever have you, she would light up in that smell, which, if you've ever been around a smoker, Marlboro Reds have a very distinct smell. She had that association of the comfort of her grandfather, and so she she never acknowledged that, so she was never able to quit. Well, what we did is we did a little homework. We figured out what kind of cologne her grandfather wore, and she now keeps like a bandana with a little bit of that cologne in it. And those same situations that would make her want to smoke, that would make her seek out that comfort, she just takes that out of her purse, smells that cologne, is taken back to that same comfort, that same association, and doesn't need to smoke. And that's a kind of an example of, until you get to the root of a problem, it will never be fixed. It's all just band aids. So simply just changing a habit doesn't do anything, because why that habit
Right.
exist? I mean, it will work for a period, but that anxiety, that mental state that led you to that habit, it will become just as exaggerated. Now gum will become a problem. Now you're, no, seriously. Now you're constantly chewing
Right.
gum. Now you're causing yourself tooth decay from the sugar and gum. Now you're causing fatigue to your jaw muscles. All because all these negative effects of exaggerated use. Because anything can be detrimental as a habit. Exercise can destroy you if it is a bad habit. If you are doing that as a habit, as a coping mechanism. We've all met people who are addicted to exercise and they think that's okay because it's exercise, but it's not. It's the same thing. You are attempting to compensate for something in your mind through addictive, obsessive behavior, just like smoking, just like overeating, whatever have you. But just because society views it as an acceptable addiction, it's fine. But it's it's the same. It's the exact same. And it boils down to why. Why do you smoke? Why do you eat? Why do you work out? If you eat because you enjoy it, if you smoke because you just want to and you don't want to quit, and if you exercise to become more healthy, fine. That's not a habit. That's that's good. That's something that we need to reinforce. But if you eat because you're sad, if you smoke because you're anxious, if you work out because you're angry, then we need to readdress something, because these behaviors are no longer healthy. Just because on appearance they might be healthy, as with exercise, it boils down to why. Everything. Everything boils down to why you act and think a certain way. And this observation of your thoughts, we call that mindfulness. It's a big part of what I do, of being mindful of what you say and how you say it and how you act and why you act that way, why you want the things that you want, of being present in your own thoughts and being very mindful of your self-talk. And what I mean by that is whenever you tell yourself that you can't or you suck or that you shouldn't, like I said earlier in the interview, your subconscious doesn't know the difference between fact and fiction. So when you tell it you can't, when you tell it we're not good enough, guess what it believes? Just that. So it's like that saying, whether you say you can or you cannot, you're right. And
Exactly.
it's it all boils down to the way we talk to ourselves. Everything that we've failed at, most for the most part, is because we told ourselves that we couldn't or that we might not. Whereas if you change the way that you spoke to yourself, and it became we will, we can, and we have, the results completely change. And I was not the affirmation guy for the longest time because I thought it was silly. But then I learned about this, and I learned that our subconscious is always listening, and it's always learning, and it's always constantly changing our homeostasis, our normal, to align with our own view, that reticular system that changes what we see and what we hear. And whenever it's negative, you will be negative. So for a, a little bit about me, I was a very negative person most of my life. Very, very angry. I only ever saw the bad in everything. And in truth, I got validation that everything was bad. Well, why is that? It's because of the way I talk to myself. It's because of the way that I had programmed that reticular activating system. Because I had told my subconscious that all I want to see is the bad and the negative and the frustrating. And it said, okay. So and that's what it started filtering in. So that's all I saw, quite literally, all I saw. And that the learning to change my mindset, to reprogramming that reticular system, changing my homeostasis, what my normal was, it completely changed me as a person. The way I think, the way I feel. I'm actually happy. Like, not even fake it till you make it. I am happy and content with my life for the first time in decades. And it's all because of this mindset, the things that I've learned, learning about myself and others, and this these neurological systems at play. And by learning how to use those, it changed my world. And now that's what I do for others, is help their world change to what they want, because things aren't just the way they are. You can change almost anything simply by changing your perception, by changing your mindset. And that might be very drastic. Changing your mindset might make you move to a whole nother state, do a whole different thing. That's fine, because you were probably stuck there to begin with. So, like I said, this is all a very deep, dark rabbit hole.
Well, I think the your last point about the self talk is huge. I mean,
Oh yeah.
especially coming from, when you're talking about the words you use, and as a parent, I mean, I will be the first on up the hill saying I use words I shouldn't have used,
Hmm.
like you know a little too much sarcasm
Hmm.
because that was my world. My mom
Yeah.
has a great sense of humor and she's sarcastic, and so I kind of not kind of, but I did take a little piece of that and
Hmm.
use some of that sarcasm on my son. And after one time where he got really upset with me, I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize
Mhm.
the words, how impactful. And I've again, not only to your kids but to yourself. And if you're consistently using negative self talk to yourself, you're going to emote that to everybody else around
Yep,
you.
absolutely. And that's one of because I work with some people that uh, a lot of the things they want to focus on are like their their relationships that they have with others, and they're often taken aback when I glaze right over that and start talking about them and the way they view themselves. And sometimes they get confused, and I've had people ask like, "That's not what I asked to work with," and I'm like, You asked me to fix this problem for you. You asked me to address this problem, and I'm starting where we have to, because until you change the way that you think and talk to yourself and the things that you accept as normal, the way that you talk to others and interact with others will never change, because your relationship with others is 100% dependent upon your relationship with yourself. And that's all that can ever be. You cannot hate yourself and love others. It is not a thing that you can do.
It's true. It really, really is true. On that note, Robert, tell everybody how to get a hold of you and what's going on in your life. How's that?
um
Before I give you the last question.
what's going on in my life? Well, just building my business. I There's classes that I teach on a weekly basis. Stenographers, oddly enough, helping them relate this mindset and trance to be able to do their work better. Um, I'm working on uh, writing a government grant to do research with fear and post traumatic stress using VR, integrating
Hmm.
hypnosis into virtual reality. And that's something I think is a big part of the future of hypnotherapy. Because let's say you're afraid of heights. Well, I could trance you to not be afraid of heights, and that might work. Or if, while keeping you in trance, I introduce you through a virtual state, we're on a cliff face now, and you still don't feel that fear because you are in that guided trance state. That fear's broken because you only have to make someone not feel a fear one time, and it's completely gone. So, but other than that, um, the way you get a hold of me, easiest way is through my website, which is www.twinravens.org. Like I said before, my business name is Twin Ravens Hypnotherapy and Research LLC. You can find us on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on all the main social media things. I don't think my Twitter's that active, but you can follow me anyway. But anyone that has any questions about anything that I said, anything, if you want to know about working with me, or if you have a group setting that you want to help with them, I would love to do that. I love teaching classes and doing group work. But any questions that someone has, any verification about anything that I've said today, if you want more information about anything I said today, don't hesitate to get a hold of me. I have a contact form on my website. It goes right to me. I respond as quickly as possible to anyone that reaches out. It's important to me that I respond to everyone that reaches out to me. But yeah,
I am very honored and grateful, Robert, that you took the time, and I know after listening to you today, I'm like, okay, I get it now. It's
yeah,
not just mumbo jumbo.
nah, nah. It's way more than that. It's like I said, it's a misunderstood thing, and that's why I do these
Right.
interviews, because when it's explained, it's not mystical. It's not hard to believe. It's something that you've seen daily in your own life. You simply just don't know what to call it yet. And that's all it is. It's not pocket watches and spinning spirals and stage shows. I hate stage hypnosis. I will freely go on the record saying that I cannot stand stage work because to me, hypnosis is an incredible healing tool. It is revolutionary in terms of the way that we live our lives. And here's this dude up here making someone bark like a dog, making everyone think it's a parlor trick. I don't really
Right.
appreciate that. But yeah, thank you
Well, are you
very
ready
much
for
for
the
having.
last question?
Oh yeah, absolutely. What's your question?
Here we go. So the last question is, Robert, what are you looking forward to for tomorrow? What are you looking forward to tomorrow?
To tomorrow? Well,
Yeah.
I have a day full of clients. I have some people that I really like to see, and I have some new techniques that I'm going to try with some people that have been working with me for a long time, and it's our hypnosis sessions have half turned into play at this point. That it's become this fascinating thing that they love to play with. So I I kind of join them in that, and if this is something that they want to have fun with, I'll have fun with it too, and we'll have fun together. So I very much look forward to that. It's going to be fun times tomorrow. I love my work, so a day full of work is a good thing to me. That means I'm going to have a good day.